My sister-in-law looked me dead in the eyes at my mother-in-law's funeral and told me she was sorry for my loss, like she hadn't spent the last 2 years sleeping with my husband. My name is Nadia, and what I'm about to tell you is not a story about heartbreak. It's a story about patience. It's a story about watching two people dig their own grave with the very shovel I handed them. Stay with me, because every twist in this story is real, and by the end, you'll understand why I'm smiling right now. I want you to understand something before we go any further. I was not a naive woman. I grew up in a household where my mother worked double shifts and my father left before I turned 6. I learned early that the world does not hand you safety. You build it yourself, brick by brick, or you live exposed to the cold forever. So when I met Daniel at 26, I didn't fall recklessly. I watched him first. I watched how he treated waitstaff. I watched how he spoke about his exes. I watched what he did when nobody was looking. And what I saw was a good man. He was patient. He was steady. He had this laugh, this full, chest-deep laugh, that made you feel like whatever room you were in was the best room in the world. We dated for 2 years. He proposed on a Tuesday morning, not a holiday, not a fancy restaurant, just us, in our kitchen, with coffee going cold on the counter. He said, "I don't want a single Tuesday without you, so, will you?" I said yes. We got married in the spring, small wedding, his family, my family, a few close friends. That's where I first met her. Veronica, his younger sister, Veronica. She was beautiful in the way that makes other women immediately aware of themselves. The kind of beautiful that fills a room and makes you recalibrate your posture. She hugged me at the reception and whispered, "Welcome to the family. We're going to be best friends." And God help me, I believed her. Veronica was everything I thought I wanted in a sister. She was funny, she was sharp, she knew exactly what to say and when to say it. When Daniel and I moved into our first house, she was the first one through the door, with paint samples and wine and a box of housewarming candles. When I miscarried our first pregnancy at 12 weeks, she sat on my bathroom floor with me and didn't say a single word. She just stayed. You don't forget people who sit with you in your worst moments. You trust them completely. And that trust, that beautiful, stupid, wholehearted trust, is exactly what she was collecting. I had our son, Elias, 3 years into our marriage. Veronica was in the delivery room. She cut the cord. She cut the cord. I'm telling you that detail because later, it will mean something different to you. 2 years after Elias, we had our daughter, Mara. By that point, Veronica was at our house 4, sometimes 5 times a week. She had a key. She knew our alarm code. She knew where I kept the children's medical records, the emergency numbers, the spare car key. She knew my husband's coffee order, his work schedule, his favorite meals. I thought that was family. I was building a life. And I handed her the blueprint. It started with a text I wasn't supposed to see. Daniel had left his phone on the charger in the kitchen. He was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for my own phone, and they were side by side. His screen lit up. "Last night was different. I keep thinking about what you said." No name. Just a heart emoji at the end. I put the phone face down. I finished making breakfast. I told the kids to wash their hands and I said nothing. I want you to understand something about how I'm wired. I do not react, I respond. There is a difference, and that difference saved me everything. A reaction is emotional, it's loud, it tips your hand. It tells the other person exactly how much they've wounded you and gives them the chance to cover their tracks. A response is strategic. It is quiet. It watches. It collects. I didn't confront Daniel that morning. I smiled at him over breakfast. I kissed him goodbye. I waved from the doorway as he backed out of the driveway, and the moment his car turned the corner, I sat down and started thinking, who would text my husband with a heart emoji and no context? Who would assume he knew exactly who they were without a name? Who had that kind of intimacy? I made a list of every woman in Daniel's orbit. It took me 3 days to admit that the name rising to the top of every logical analysis was the name I had refused to put on the list at all. Veronica. I want to be precise here because I think precision matters. I did not hire a private investigator. I did not go through his phone while he slept. I did not set traps or create fake situations to catch them. What I did was simpler, and in many ways, more devastating. I paid attention. Suddenly, with new eyes, everything that had seemed like family love looked different. The way Veronica touched Daniel's shoulder when she passed him. The way he always made sure to mention, casually, what time he'd be home when she was there. The way her voice changed, just slightly, when she spoke to him. A warmth that was somehow different from how she spoke to everyone else. I started keeping notes, dates, times, observations. Not to build a case for the courts, not yet. To understand the scope of what I was dealing with. Because the question wasn't just, is my husband cheating? The question was, how long, how deep, and who else knows? The answer came 4 weeks later. I was at a school event for Elias. Daniel couldn't make it. Work, he'd said. But Daniel's childhood friend Marcus was there with his daughter. Marcus and I had always gotten on well. He was a straight talker, no performance. He pulled me aside near the parking lot afterward. He looked uncomfortable, the way men look when they're about to say something they've been wrestling with for weeks. He said, "Nadia, I don't know what you know, but I need you to know that I think you deserve better than what's happening." I looked at him steadily. I said, "How long?" He closed his eyes. "About 18 months. 18 months. Elias was 3.5 years old. Mara was barely one. I had been nursing my daughter while my sister-in-law was sleeping with my husband. I thanked Marcus. I hugged my son. I buckled Mara into her car seat, and I drove home, and I cooked dinner, because I already knew the worst thing I could do right now was let them know I knew. I spent 2 weeks seeing a therapist in secret, not because I was falling apart. I was holding it together almost frighteningly well, but because I needed someone to help me think clearly in a space where nobody was watching. My therapist, Dr. Amara, would later say that I was one of the most composed clients she had ever worked with in a crisis. I told her that I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. My children needed a mother who was winning. During those 2 weeks, I made several very important moves. I consulted a family law attorney in strict confidence. She walked me through exactly what I was entitled to. We had been married 7 years. I had paused my career to raise the children while Daniel advanced at his firm. We had a house with significant equity, 2 joint accounts, and his pension. She told me that in our state, adultery, especially provable adultery, could impact asset division. I went home and began very carefully, very slowly, transferring portions of our joint savings into a personal account I had opened quietly. Not all of it. Not enough to trigger alarm. Just enough. I then worked with a digital forensics consultant, a woman my attorney connected me with, who helped me retrieve deleted message threads from a shared cloud account that Daniel had forgotten was linked to a tablet the children used. I won't read you what those messages said, but I will tell you they were thorough, and I saved every single one. Marcus was willing to make a written statement, and when I gently, carefully reached out to one of Veronica's closest friends, a woman named Teresa, who had always seemed vaguely guilty in my presence, she broke in under 20 minutes. She had known for 14 months. She had told Veronica it was wrong. Veronica had told her that Daniel and I were basically over anyway. I thanked Teresa. I told her I didn't blame her. And I asked her if she'd be willing to put that in writing. She said yes. Now, here is where most people would have filed for divorce and let the lawyers handle the rest. But I had a different problem. Veronica was not just my husband's affair partner. She was positioning herself as a replacement. She had the key to my house. She had relationships with my children that they depended on. She had ingrained herself into every corner of my life so thoroughly that if she and Daniel married after our divorce, which I had every reason to believe was the plan, she would step into the shape of me. She would be Elias and Mara's stepmother. She would live in the story of my family. I was not willing to let that happen, so I didn't just plan a divorce. I planned a dismantling. I invited Daniel's entire family for Sunday dinner, his parents, his aunt and uncle from out of town, his cousins, 3 of our mutual friends, and Veronica. I cooked for 2 days. The house was immaculate. I wore the red dress Daniel had always said was his favorite. My hair was done, my face was composed. I was, by every visible measure, the perfect wife hosting a perfect dinner. Veronica arrived last. She walked in and hugged me the way she always did, tight, familiar, comfortable. Like she had earned that access. I hugged her back and I whispered, so quietly that only she could hear, sit next to Daniel. I want everyone to see you both together one last time. She pulled back and looked at me. And for the first time since years, I've watched Veronica's face lose its composure. She sat at the far end of the table instead. Dinner was beautiful. I laughed. I topped up wine glasses. I told a funny story about Mara that made everyone roar. I was magnetic. And Daniel kept watching me like he couldn't figure out what was happening. After dessert, as the table settled into that warm, slow after-dinner glow, I stood up. I said, I want to make a toast. Everyone raised their glasses, I said, to family, which I have always believed is the most sacred thing we have, and to honesty, which is the only thing that keeps a family real. I looked at Daniel. Then I looked at Veronica. I said, I know about the last 18 months. I have documentation. My attorney has copies. The room went completely, utterly silent. I'm not making a scene, I said, because that would be beneath me. And because your children, our children, are in the next room. But I want every person at this table to know the truth. Because some of you have been sitting with it alone for too long. I looked at Marcus. He looked down at his plate. I looked at Teresa, who had come as my guest, not theirs. She held my gaze. Then I set my glass down. Daniel, I'll have papers drawn up by Thursday. I'll be civil, I'll be reasonable, but I will not be manipulated. I looked at Veronica one last time. And you cut the cord at my daughter's birth. You sat on my bathroom floor when I lost a pregnancy. You held my children like they were yours. They are not, and they never will be. I walked into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. And I listened to the sound of everything falling apart. Here is what happened to Daniel. His parents, when the full truth came out, did not take his side. His mother called him the following morning. She cried for an hour, and then she stopped crying and became someone Daniel had never seen before. She told him that his father had agreed. They would not fund any legal maneuvering against me. They would not support a relationship with Veronica. And if he chose that path, he would be choosing to do so without the family he'd been born into. Daniel called me 3 times that night. I let every call go to voicemail. His path to partnership at his firm, a promotion he'd been working toward for 4 years, was quietly shelved. He wanted to fight for the house. His attorney took one look at my documentation and advised him strongly to settle. He settled. And Veronica? She and Daniel lasted 7 months after I filed. 7 months. Because it turns out that what they'd built together was not love. It was a fantasy. A fantasy about a life that didn't belong to them. When it was no longer forbidden, no longer stolen, no longer fueled by secrecy, it deflated. He ended it. She had already left her own apartment, her own life, her own friendships. She had been so certain he would marry her. She is now in another city. I know this not because I track her, but because she reached out to me 8 months after the divorce was finalized. She sent a long message. Pages. She apologized. She explained. She tried to contextualize. I read every word, and then I did something that surprised even me. I did not respond with anger. I did not respond with satisfaction. I responded with 4 sentences. Veronica, I read your message. I believe you believe what you've written. But my healing does not require your apology, and my life does not require your presence in it. I sent it. And I never heard from her again. I want to tell you where Elias and Mara are today. They are happy. That is the most important sentence in this entire story, and I mean it without any drama. They are just happy. They have a mother who rebuilt her life with intention. They have a father who, to his credit, has been present and consistent in the years since the divorce. They have 2 homes now, but both homes are stable. They do not have Veronica, and they have never asked for her. I went back to work 18 months after the divorce. I started my own boutique marketing consultancy. I now have 11 clients. 3 of them are 7-figure brands. I built that from a spare bedroom in my new house, between school drop offs and bedtime routines, and the beautiful, ordinary chaos of raising two kids on my own. I don't say that for applause. I say it because I want you to understand. This story did not break me, it built me. The woman who sat at that dinner table in the red dress, she was not born in one night. She was made over 18 months of quiet grief, quiet preparation, and a refusal, an absolute refusal to become a casualty. I am often asked by women who hear this story, how did you not lose it? How did you stay so calm? And my honest answer is this. I decided very early that the most powerful thing I could do, more powerful than screaming, more powerful than exposing them on social media, more powerful than any dramatic confrontation, was to win. Not to win over them, not win against them, to win my own life back. There is a version of this story where I catch them early and break down, where I cry and beg and make it about my pain, where I become so consumed by what they did that I lose years to anger. And I would have been completely justified. But justified and victorious are not the same thing. The house sold 6 months after the divorce. I drove past it once, by accident, about a year later. I felt nothing. And that absence of ache was the most complete form of victory I could have imagined. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be patient. To every woman watching this who is sitting with something she doesn't know what to do with, don't panic. Don't react. Breathe. Think. Move quietly. Your moment will come. And when it does, make sure you're ready. My name is Nadia, and I am still standing. If this story moved you, if any part of it felt familiar, felt validating, felt like something you needed to hear today, drop the word standing in the comments. I read every single one. And if you have a story, because I know many of you do, share it. Anonymously if you need to. Because this community exists so that no woman feels alone in what she's carrying. Subscribe if you're new. We post every week.